Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to VTP Stage 2 Online Technical Tuesday Coaching Call 197 for the 23rd of June 2026. Quite a day. It's the 10-year anniversary of the Brexit vote. And of course, we've already had a rather interesting start to the week, which I think is all part of the follow-on from 10 years ago. But anyway, let's leave that for a different blog post. I hope you're well. I hope you've had a good start to the week. I hope you've enjoyed the is it comedy or is it drama that we've witnessed here in the UK over the last couple of days. But regardless of which, you're very welcome here. Just remember that you are always responsible for your own trading and investment choices. And if you want a little bit more help and support, there is a special offer for till now, till the end of Q2, okay, for till 30th of June, where you can get a reduced price deal on either Stage 2, the advanced swing trading course, or Stage 3, the intraday trading, or a bundle of them both. If you've got any questions, you can ping me, or there is a bit.ly code there, or that QR code will take you to it. Bang. All right, let us go on to we'll look at sterling. We'll look at UK sterling gilts. All right, so this is the gilts. Okay, so bring this up. So this is kind of my intraday futures setup as well. So this is gilts, two-year gilts. Okay, why am I interested in this? Well, we can see that we had kind of drifted our way down. This is a 4-hour chart. This is a 30-minute chart. And actually what we saw was as we went into that kind of maker field election, we saw yields kind of pop their way up. And I thought we might actually drift a bit back higher up in towards these gaps. But actually, as you can see, interestingly, the kind of yield has dropped. And if I go into the 30-minute chart, okay, so Monday, we start to pop up there. And interestingly, 9:30 when Starmer came out and said I'm resigning, actually, the price of UK government debt tried to drop there, okay, it's dropped significantly and carried on this morning, okay. That in itself is telling us something, okay. That's well, my interpretation, and once again, of course, I could be well wrong. My interpretation is that, this deal is done, all right, and that basically, there's not going to be a major contest at the moment, okay. The fact that Burnham will just ease himself in there, it's all been planned, it's all been plotted, and that his chancellor is probably going to be someone that the markets can stand. They may not like them, but it's not the kind of absolute nut bars like Torsten Belland that people thought it was going to be. That's my interpretation. As I said, I could be very wrong, but listen, always follow the money. And if we look at 10-year, okay, the 10-year sterling gilt yield, it's not sterling gilt yields, my apologies. It's the same pattern, okay. Rose on Friday at the start of the by-election. Everyone get a little bit nervous. But then basically from yesterday, from Starmer resigning, actually, bang, yields have just dropped considerably there. And that's not what people were expecting, myself included. I thought we would see, yields rise because as we got all of this political shenanigans. But to me, that looks, as I said, that's just telling me that, markets are well, the big boys are happy, all right, or they've been made good, or they've been made happy. So watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe there is going to be a turnaround. I wouldn't bet the house on it, but the yields are kind of interesting. All right, that is definitely worth keeping an eye on. And as you can see, today the down, over 1% for the 2-year yields. 10 years is just under 1% and a 0.75% for the 30 years. So that's kind of something to watch out on. All right, let's have a look at let's move across to sterling itself. I'm just going to start, I think, by this is one of my spreadsheets that I cover for my intraday trading for Pac-Mans, and so here I'm just showing. I know this is kind of more swing trading, but I'm just kind of showing that basically yesterday, going into the start of the day, there was an awful lot of bearishness on sterling pairs, but there was actually no real trades. All right, no real trades at all, and in fact, pretty much either they stayed inside their range, or there was just it didn't really Pac-Man until late, and the price action wasn't telling us anything. As opposed to today, all right, 23rd of June, okay, it has been a much busier trading session this morning, okay, so had to take into account some of the PMIs, but after the PMI numbers, which interestingly were weaker, much weaker for the UK than had been expected, and so there has actually been some kind of nice moves there. So I have a very busy morning as I said, on kind of intraday trading sterling. Okay, so we can see, as I said yesterday, not much happening. Everybody's scratching their heads. Okay, but today people are starting to make a move. With that, let us have a look at sterling itself. So what have I got here? Okay, cable on the daily: euro sterling, pound Aussie, pound Canadian, pound yen, pound Swiss, pound Kiwi, and the FTSE. I know I don't normally look at indexes on here, but I'm just going to update this, all right? Because you know what? Basically, my view had always been that we would we would be kind of waiting until we got some kind of response to identify pushes out of this kind of this coiling up, this continuation triangle. Now, you know, the kind of classical technical analysis would say, well, this is your flagpole, Paul. We're going to go much higher in FTSE. I think that would require an absolute shredding of everything that Starmer, Burnham, Labour hold dear in terms of the way they want to do business. So, you know, excuse me if I'm a little bit unconvinced, all right, at the moment. But certainly, you know, we're kind of working our way up, and I think perhaps this is a reflection that people are going to wait to see who he appoints as chancellor. All right, that's what everybody's going to want to see. There's been all sorts of names from the absolute nut bars like Miliband, okay, and Yvette Cooper, and to other ones like Keeping Rachel Reeves, God help us, or either people like Wes Streeting, who are supposed to be on the right of the left. You can make your own mind up, okay? All I'm looking at is that to me is coiling up, and I'm going to see whether there's going to be a move to support that, okay, once they announce the chancellor. But if we look at sterling, well, you know, here we go. Cable weekly chart. You know, it is for most this year. There's been kind of volatile swings, courtesy of the Iran war, and B, its impact on the dollar. But certainly, the last few weeks, you can see that sterling was weakening against the dollar anyway. And if we look at that on the daily chart, you know, in this month in particular, we can see it drifted. But even with that, as I said, you know, we kind of drifted down last week, and I was all right. I was short sterling, okay. But interestingly, okay, it's a real case of, in this case, you know, sell the rumor, buy the fact, and that's what we've seen. That's what we've seen there. But this morning. This morning, kind of, you know, weakened our way down there, and some of that is that kind of, I think, dollar strength, right? A little bit of that kind of risk off there. You know, we just worked our way down with that. Pound against yen. I mean, if you look at that on the daily chart for this month, you know, I look at that as being, we're just in a rectangle, we're just consolidating in a block. There's nothing really terribly exciting for me there as a swing trader. Okay, I'm just waiting to see what the score is, but. Admittedly, we ended up, you know, as a strong sterling day. Now, also the yen was getting sold off as well there, right? But and you know, this morning we kind of just, yeah, we just bang, we dropped our way down there. Maybe there's a bit of a double bottom coming out of it there, right? So, but you know, interestingly, you look at that. That was kind of that's about 9 to 9:30 yesterday, and then Starmer resigns, and actually Sterling rallies. All right, so maybe that's an indication of how loved he was, which was not much at all. Pound against Swiss franc. We've talked about this. Okay, we're in that kind of block there. We've now got above it. We've printed a nice bull flag, and we've continued to work. All right, and that is a case of that is probably more indicative of how Swiss franc has weakened. You know, the S&P said they were going to do some manipulation, all right, once the war started, and clearly they have kind of manipulated that Swiss weakness that we've seen there, and you know, even with sterling shenanigans, that has just still managed to work its way higher against Swiss franc. Look at the kind of dolls, pound against Canadian dollar. Yeah, all right. You'd say, you know, there has been a strength there from that. Was it 18th of May? From the bullish engulfing there, we have worked our way higher, okay, and that is Canadian weakness, I'd say. But you can then also say the last week or so has been a bit scruffy as well, okay. So yeah, you can see, you know, it's just. yeah, not easy for a swing trader. Okay, this morning, okay, it Pac-Maned and then it dropped nicely. Okay, so as I said, it was a busy morning. Pound against Aussie. Once again, we kind of flushed the lows last month. Then I would call that kind of a supporting. I would call that a bull flag. Okay, but because it's not bull flag should be in a trend and it's not. It's as part of a reversal. It's I'd be looking at that as kind of just a supportive what's the right word? Supportive rectangle, supportive conic, rather than just a bull flag itself, because bull flag should be coming after a bit of an uptrend. That was just, but it's worked its way nicely, hasn't it? And it came back to the 50 and it's bounced its way back off the 50. And today we're back up above 190. All right. So let's see if that continues and if we get that continued Aussie weakness. Pound against New Zealand dollar, having had a couple of years of a good trend, albeit really scruffy on the weekly chart. This year has been all over the show, hasn't it? Really difficulty. I mean, you look at that, very difficult if you're trying to take swings on a daily to work that. Okay, intraday has been okay, but it's not been difficult. The only thing you can take away from it is here we are. Is that we are now above the daily 50, above the daily 200, and there is an element of Kiwi weakness and sterling strength carrying on there. And then finally, it is euro against sterling. Okay. And we've talked about this quite a bit. I've seen that as a descending triangle with support, about 86.20. Okay. And we've talked about it in previous sessions about how we can see that, every time it come down, there's some really nice, like bullish engulfing, okay, double bottom, and but every time it bounced, all right, every time it bounced off this kind of level, all right, you can see every time it's bounced, the bounce has got less and less, hasn't it? And then yesterday, what we saw was that real big sell off there, okay, real big sell off, boom. So, this is kind of interesting, right? That is a big, is that a reflection of, is that a reflection that basically well, I was going to say, that there's going to be a change in UK policy. I don't think so because Burnham has been trying to keep quiet, but he is probably even more pro EU than Starmer, and Starmer was effectively a treacherous, pro Davos, pro Brussels boy and stuff. And so I find it strange that kind of euros weakened there and sterling has strengthened so much of that. Maybe it is just an intraday reflection of how low Starmer was, that sterling just strengthened. But we're back at, kind of 86.10 to 86.20. What I'm intrigued to see is this just going to basically act as support? We're going to bounce off it, or as we can see today, we've kind of popped up to it, we're dropped away from it. So, are we going to get continued kind of euro weakness, all right, and sterling strength? Because then I would be looking at, well, there's the 200, a weekly 200. Where's that? At 86. It's not many pips, but then euro sterling doesn't move in big pips anyway. But yeah, let's see how this ends the week, all right? Because if you look at every other time we've come down here, it hasn't been able to close down here, has it? So let's see how this plays out by the end of this week. Is that indication of kind of the future trajectory and trend run? Okay, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate I ran over a little bit there, but lots to talk about, lots to share with you there. As always, I hope you found it useful. I hope it helps you just make sense of what's going on. All right, of course, things are changing rapidly, but we're always the same. Okay, we're any other different. I hope you have a fabulous trading week, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, just make sure you're on top of your risk management and your order flow and news flow as always. Have a great week, and I will speak to you next week. All right, take care and trade well, everybody. Cheers.